Okay, so let us start today's discussion then. So in the last discussion we were uh, we were we were talking about the helium atom. So let me begin by writing down the Hamiltonian of the helium atom once again. So this is the kinetic energy part, and then we have Z E square by R1, Z E square by R2, and then we have the Coulomb repulsion term, which is R12. So R12 is basically the magnitude of the distance between the two electrons. So this is what R12 is, and this is the the sum of the kinetic energy terms for the two electrons, and this is the potential energy of the experienced by the electron due to the nucleus of the atom, and this last term is the Coulomb repulsion term, and we have seen that the unperturbed ground state energy is given by Z square E square by A. So this is the unperturbed ground state energy. It is actually 2A for each electron, but you have two electrons, therefore it gets multiplied by 2. Therefore, this is the unperturbed ground state energy. And in the last lecture, we were trying to calculate the correction to this unperturbed ground state energy due to this Coulomb repulsion term. And we also looked at the unperturbed ground state wave function, which we denoted by psi naught. So this is the unperturbed ground state wave function, and we wrote it in the following way. This was R1s, R1, since it is the ground state, therefore we know that the ground state electronic configuration is 1s2, right? This S stands for L is equal to 0. This is the ground state of the orbital angular momentum quantum number. So the ground state eigenstate would be the following. It will be half 1, 2 minus down 1 up 2. And so you can see that here we are actually applying the Pauli exclusion principle to correctly antisymmetrize this state, because the two electrons are two identical indistinguishable particles, indistinguishable electrons, and since they are fermions, therefore they must obey Fermi-Dirac statistics, and therefore you have to correctly antisymmetrize your eigenstate, and this is the antisymmetrized eigenstate. So it is antisymmetric under exchange of both the coordinates. So I missed here. This is function of R2. So this eigenstate is antisymmetry under exchange of both the coordinates of the particles, identical particles, as well as their spins. And what we need to do, we need to calculate the correction due to this perturbation term to the unperturbed ground state energy, and we know the formula for it is basically E square by R12. So this is the formula for calculating the first order correction to the energy, to the ground state, unperturbed ground state energy due to your perturbation term. Your perturbation is E square by R12, and we need to calculate this. So today what we shall do is we shall calculate this term explicitly and see what we get. So I hope you can see this. So this is E square R12, and then we have psi naught. And you can immediately write this down as E cubed R1 R2. So this is, you're basically inserting complete set of states, position eigenstates, and if you do that, then what we shall get finally is we'll get psi star 1 2 e square r12 psi naught 1 2, where this 1 2 stands, it is a compact notation, it stands basically for both the, it represents the coordinates as well as the spins of the particles 1 and 2. So now the thing is you just need to put in the values of these wave functions in this expression, and if you do that, you will immediately see that this will give you, you will have a bra term corresponding to this term, and you will have this ket, and this will give you 1. If you just calculate it, it will give you 1. So what we shall finally get is the following: d cubed r1, d cubed r2, and then we just need to put in these things here. So these are radial functions. So this is r1 is r1. You can put a star, but star it is a real number, so it remains the same. So you have r1 is r1, r1 is r2, and you have the same thing from this term also. This I have written for this term, and you will have the same thing for this term also. So it will just become squared. It will just, we will have a square here, and then this will be multiplied by e square r12. So this is the thing that we shall get from here. And now you know the radial functions. The radial functions are given by the following expression. This is z cube by pi a cube. So these are hydrogenic like atoms, and therefore you just write down the radial wave functions for the hydrogen atom, and you just have a z here, which represents the atomic number. So this is what we have. And what we need to do is just plug in this expression here, and if we do that, it will finally give us the following result. We'll get.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes.
Why is e square over r12 not taken as an operator?
Why should it be an operator?
Because it has 1 over r, right? Here?
Yeah, but
it is part of the potential, right? Then shouldn't
yes,
it be an operator?
But this is any function of the potential. The potential is in general. If you recall in quantum mechanics, in the Schrodinger equation, the potential is basically a function of the coordinates, right?
Yeah.
So when it acts on the ket, it will give you the eigenvalues directly. Whether it is 1 by r or it is any power, it doesn't matter.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got it.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right? Had it been a function of momentum, then it brings in a differential operator. Then you could have said, okay, this is problematic. But the potential is a function of coordinates. And then it acts on any ket, any position ket. It simply gives the eigenvalues. Okay. So let us now plug in this expression here. And if you plug in the expression here, you will get, from this will give us a z cube by I a cube, because the square root will go away. For this, it will just become z cube by pi a cube. You will have the same factor for this, so this will give us a square. Okay. And then we will have, then we need to put in this value. So if you put in that value, you will get minus 2z by a r1 plus r2, and then we have e square by r12, which you know that it is basically the modulus of r1 vector minus r2 vector. So this is what we have. So we need, now you see that we need to calculate this. And what we shall do is we shall use an expression for 1 by r12. 1 by r12 is, you can write this down as summation k is equal to 0 to infinity r less than to the power of k, r greater than to the power of k, r greater to the power of k plus 1, and this is cos of theta 12. What is cos of theta 12? Theta 12 is basically the angle between the two vectors r1 and r2. So this is the standard expression, you know, for 1 by r12 in terms of Legendre polynomials. These are the Legendre polynomials. Theta 12 is the angle between the two vectors r1 vector and r2. And what do I mean by r less and r greater? That will be clear in a moment. It basically means that this expression is, it basically tells you, it basically means that you take the value which corresponds to the lesser value between R1 and R2. So if R1 is less than R2, if R1 is less than R2, then R less is R1. So it is R1 to the power of k, and this is R greater. So R2 is greater than R1. So this R greater is R2. So this is R2 to the power of k plus 1 pk cos theta 1. So this is what it means. And similarly for the other case, when R2 is less than R1, R less is R2 and R greater is R1. So you can write it down. You can write the corresponding expression for 1 by R12 when R2 is less than R1. You just appropriately. So this is a nice way of writing the expression. And what we now do is we just plug this thing, we just put it here. So let us do that. So if you just put it in that expression, we will get d cubed r1 vector d cubed r2 vector. This will give us z cubed by pi d cubed whole square. You have e square multiplied by with it, and then you have e to the power of 2z by a r1 plus r2. This is what we have, and then this is multiplied by summation k is equal to 0 to infinity r less than to the power of k, r greater than to the power of k plus 1, as I just mentioned to you, this pk cos theta 1 2. Is it clear? So if this is clear, now what we now need to do is the following. So this you can write it down as summation k is equal to 0 to infinity, and what I shall do is I shall call, this is a constant term, so I shall call this a. Let me call this a for the time being, so you don't need to worry about this constant, we shall use it later. So I have an a outside, it goes outside all the integrations and the summation. So you have this term now, and then we have integral d cubed r1 d cubed R2 then we have R less than to the power of k by R greater than to the power of k plus 1. And then we have pk cos theta 1. This is what we have. But there is a nice expression for these Legendre polynomials, pk cos theta 1, 2, where theta 1, 2 is basically the angle, as I mentioned, that it is the angle between the two vectors r1 vector and r2 vector. So this you have, this can be written as 4 pi by 2k plus 1 summation over q y star kq theta 1 phi 1 and y kq theta 2 phi 2. So you can write it down in terms of spherical harmonics like this. So this expression for the Legendre polynomials in terms of the spherical harmonics, you can try to prove this relation yourself at home. This is called the spherical harmonic addition theorem. Have you seen this earlier? So if you have not seen this earlier, you can just look at any book on mathematical methods, mathematical physics, and you will get a relation between the Legendre polynomials and the spherical harmonics in this way. So what we now need to do is use this thing and put it over here. You have to plug it in this expression, and if you plug it in that expression, what we shall get finally after putting it there, you just remember what the value of this constant a is. So this will give us 4. So I take this 4 pi outside. So you have a 4 pi constant a. Then we have summation k is equal to 0 to infinity. Then you can write this as 1 by 2k plus 1. You can pull this factor outside the integrals, but not outside the summation because you have a k here. And then we have integral d cubed r1 d cubed r2 to z r1 plus r2 by a. And then we have r less, r greater. This is what we have. And then this is multiplied by summation over q y star k cube theta 1 phi 1 and y k cube theta 2 phi 2. So you can see the advantage that you get once you use the spherical harmonic addition theorem. You can see immediately that this theta 1, 2, which was the angle between the two vectors, has now been separated into separate angles, theta 1, phi 1, theta 2, phi 2. So you have separated the angles theta 1 and theta 2. So this is the advantage of using the spherical harmonic addition theorem. And now what we have to do is we need to write down these integration measures. So d cube r1 is r1 square dr1, and that integral will be from 0 to infinity because the radial integrals are from 0 to infinity. So it is r1 square dr1 sine theta 1 d theta 1 d phi 1. So that is the integration measure for R1 integral, and similarly you have the same thing for dr2. dr2 will be nothing but, I will just write it over here, it will be 0 to infinity r2 square dr2 sine theta 2 d theta 2 d phi 2. So now we have put in the integration measures, and we know that the theta 1 integral will be from 0 to pi, the phi 1 integral will be from 0 to 2 pi, and similarly here, this is 0 to pi, and this is 0 to 2 pi. So what we now need to do is carry out this, the angular integrals first. We need to carry out the angular integrals. So let us do the angular integral now and see what we get from here. So what we have is integral 0 to pi sine theta 1 d theta 1, and suppose we are doing this integral y kq integral. So okay, so you have 0 to 2 pi d phi 1, and then we have y kq theta 1 phi 1. So we need to do this integral, and you remember that you have a summation over q outside, and also a summation over k. So summation over k. So let us keep it like this. And we should obviously remember that there is a r less than k by r greater than k plus 1 here. So you should remember this. So we need to do this integral, and it turns out that you know the relation between the spherical harmonics and the associated Legendre polynomials. So let me just write it down here. The relation between the spherical harmonics ylm theta phi, apart from some constant, it is plm theta e to the power of I n phi, and then here you have some constant, and the value of this constant is 2l plus 1 l minus m factorial by 4 pi l plus m factorial square root. So this is the relation between the spherical harmonics and the associated Legendre polynomials. So these PLMs are the associated Legendre polynomials. So what we now need to do is just put this in this expression. So now you can see that the advantage of using this relation is that you can carry out the phi 1 integral exactly, because this is now separated into a theta, and it is a product of a term which is only dependent on theta and only dependent on phi. So you can carry out the phi integral over here, and you can carry out the theta integral. So these have been separated into two product integrals, and you can do it. And for this thing, this is a y star of kq theta 1 phi 1. So y star kq. So there is another relation between the spherical harmonics itself. Y lm theta phi is basically equal to -1 to the power of m. So you need to use this relation, and then y l minus m theta phi. So for this integral, when you try to do this integral, so this is, see, y kq, this one is theta 2 phi 2. So you can do it by using this relation that I've already talked about. But this integral is over theta 1 phi 1, but this is a y star. So what you do first is convert y star to y ln theta 1 phi 1, and then you use the relation for this between the spherical harmonics and the associated Legendre polynomials. So if you do that, you can immediately see what the result is now. So for this thing, you just put it over here, and this will be 0 to 2 pi e to the power of I. So I think this will be theta 2 phi 2. It is better to keep it as sin theta d theta. Let us not worry about theta 1 phi 1. So you have this integral, you put it over here, you have some constants, there is a PLM, but let us do the phi integral first. So it will be e to the power of I q phi. And immediately you can see that this is 2 pi Kronecker delta q0. Because if q is not equal to 0, this integral vanishes, and if q is equal to 0, this integral gives a value of 2 pi. Okay. So now you put 2 pi over here, and there is a Kronecker delta q comma 0. So you can see that this summation goes away. This summation is gone, and in place of m, this constant that you have in front, you just put m is equal to 0. Because this term contributes only for q equals 0. So this constant that you will have, is it clear to you, or should I do it more carefully? Is it clear? Yes or no?
So just the delta function that you got, that part, can you explain once again?
This one? This
Just
one?
the Kronecker delta part. Yeah.
Yes, you just integrate this and see. This is a simple integral, right? This is an integral over d phi. It's a simple integral. Just integrate it. So, so if q is say 1, right? If q is 1, what is the value of q? It is 0.
0,
so,
sir. Yeah.
So it is 0 for any value of q which is not equal to 0. And it is equal to 2 pi for only when q is equal to 0. So that is why you have a Kronecker delta sitting over here. And what that Kronecker delta does is it kills this summation. Over all possible values of q, it only takes the value of q is equal to 0. And now you have this constant sitting in front, which for ykq, this will be replaced by k, this is k, this is q. And so this is k, this is q, this is k, this is k, and this is 0. So this becomes k factorial, and this is also k. So you can see that this k factorial and k factorial cancels. So that is what I am saying. Okay? Here, I think, yes, this is fine. So that is what I am saying. So, when you do this, ck0, you have this. Okay. Okay. You should also remember that this is r less than to the power of k, r greater than to the power of k. The summation over q, it contributes only for q is equal to 0, and you also have a factor of 1 by 2 k plus 1 coming from this factor. There is a 1 by 2 k plus 1. So what remains is the following. Let me just wrap this out so it will be clear now. So you have a 2 pi from this integral. So this gives us 2 pi summation k equals 0 to infinity. Let me write this down clearly. R less than to the power of k, r greater than to the power of k plus 1. Then you have a 1 by 2 k plus 1. Due to this factor, and then we have some constant sitting in front, because you know that the spherical harmonics are related to the associated Legendre polynomials. There was a factor, square root factor in front, which was basically L minus m factorial by 4 pi L plus n factorial, and on top you have a 2L plus 1. So that factor is also there. So let me write down that factor. So that will give us 1 by square root 4, 5. And you will have a 2k plus 1 square root. So this is what you have. Due to the coming from this YKQ when you write it down in terms of the associated Legendre polynomials. And then you have 0 to pi sine theta d theta, and then we have t k, q is 0, so this is 0, and then we have cosine of theta. So this is what we have. Okay. Okay, so now let us proceed from here. So this is only one of the integrals, mind you. You should remember that I'm just doing one of the integral. You have a similar integral for theta 1, phi 1. So you have to put in that value also. Okay, let us do this integral. So if you can do this.
Sir, sir, why is the argument of Legendre polynomial cos theta? It was theta earlier.
Which one?
Sir, the argument of pk0.
I see. So did I write PLM theta? Did I write PLM theta?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It will be cos theta. Please change it. So the relation which I wrote down between the spherical harmonics and the associated Legendre polynomial, this will be cos theta, not theta. Please change it. Okay. So now let us look at this term. So this thing and this thing will cancel. So this will give us this. And then you can now do this integral very nicely. You can call x is equal to cos theta. If x is equal to cos theta, then this integral will be, for theta is equal to 0, this is 1, theta is equal to pi, x is minus 1, and this will be minus of dx, and this is pk0, when this is 0, because this was the value of q, pk0 is as good as pk, the Legendre polynomials themselves, so this is pkx. And now you can invert this sign. There is a minus sign. You can now change the limits of integration by absorbing this sign. So this will become minus 1 and plus 1. So this is dk pkx. Okay? And by using the orthogonality of the...
Sir, that last part is not visible. The board is not visible.
This part?
Yes, sir.
This is not visible? Okay, let me see whether it can be improved. Because I don't set the camera. Is it now visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So I shall try to write in this side now. Otherwise, I think it is inconvenient for you to see. Let me remove this portion. So you can now see that this integral will contribute only when k is equal to 0. For any other k, this integral vanishes. This integral is 0. So only when k is equal to 0. So this will basically give us a 2 delta k comma 0. The value of that integral is this. Therefore, this 2 and this 2 will give us a 4 pi. So this is now gone. This 2 is gone. And delta k comma 0 will kill this summation. It will only give you the k is equal to 0 value. So this is gone. So you can put k is equal to 0 here. So this will give us 1 because r to the power of 0 is 1. And this is r greater to the power of 1. So this is 1 by r greater. And you put k is equal to 0 here. So this will give us 1. So this is also gone. So everything is gone. So we have carried out the integral correctly, and therefore This gives us, so 1 by square 4 pi and 4 pi, this will give us square root of 4 pi. So the value of this angular integral for one of this term is square root of 4 pi. If you do the same thing for this one, you will get another square root of 4 pi, so you will get a contribution of 4 pi from the angular integrals. So what you will finally get is this will become 4 pi whole square, and now you don't have these angular integrals anymore. Angular integrals are not there, this summation is not there, this 1 by 2k plus 1 is not there, this is not there. So you have a very simplified kind of integral. What you have is the following. Let me write it clearly. So this is integral 0 to infinity r1 square dr1, integral 0 to infinity r2 square dr2, times this thing times 1 by r greater, and everything is gone. We have carried out all the angular integrals. The angular integrals have been carried out. So what we now need to do is carry out this the radial integrals r1 and r2. So this is what is left to do. Okay. You obviously have a e square factor here. Remember, e square is there, or I think I have absorbed e square in a, right? Did I do that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
If I have absorbed e square in a, then there is no e square. So you remember what the constant a is. So now our job is to perform the radial integrals and nothing else. And that can be done quite easily now. So we can write this down as 4 pi whole square, the constant a, remember what this constant a is, and then we have 0 to infinity r1 square dr1, then this is, we have to carry out the r2 integral. So this is 0 to r1, 0 to r1, r2 square dr2. This r1 you can separate it out. So you can write this r1 outside. So this will become minus 2z r1 by a. Okay, so that goes outside. But this r2, I want to perform the r2 integral first. So this will become minus 2z r2 by a. And then you have 1 r greater. So what is the value of this? See here, which one is greater? R1 is greater than R2, right? In this range of integration, R1 is greater than R2. So 1 by R greater will be 1 by R1. And then integral, this is from R1 to infinity. So this is how I break the R2 integral. The R2 integral is from 0 to infinity, so I break it up from 0 to R1 and then from R1 to infinity. In this range, R greater is basically R1 because that is the greater between R1 and R2. And in this range, the reverse thing will happen. This is R2 square dr2. In this range, R2 is greater than R1. Therefore, R greater will be 1 by R2. And we have minus 2z R2 by a 1 by R2. So this is what we have to do. These are the integrals that we need to perform. So you can immediately see that this R2 and this R2 will cancel. So this will give us just R2 dr2. This integral, this R1 you can take it outside the integral. It does not bother us because this is an integral over R2. You can take it outside. So you see that this is a very simple integral which you can perform. You can calculate it analytically. You can do it by hand. This is also a simple integral. You can do it by hand. I leave this as an exercise for you. Please do these integrals yourself. And after doing the integrals, these are very simple integrals. You can do these integrals by integration by part, and you please do these integrals at home. I leave this as exercises for you, and if you do these integrals, the final answer that you will get is 5 by 8 z e square by a. So this will be the answer. So once you do these integrals, this will be your first order correction from perturbation theory. The first order correction to the ground state, unperturbed ground state energy of the helium atom coming from perturbation theory, where you treat the Coulomb repulsion term E square by R12 as a perturbation, as a small term. So this gives you the correction. What I have left for you to do is do these integrals yourself by hand, and as I mentioned, these are very simple to do because you just need to apply integration by parts. Therefore, what is the total energy? The total energy, I can write it down as z square E square by a. So this was the unperturbed energy, unperturbed ground state energy of this configuration. This is the ground state electronic configuration, and the correction, the first order correction due to perturbation theory is this term. This is 5 by 8 z e square by a. And you can calculate higher order corrections as well, which we have not done here. You can try to calculate higher order corrections. So this is approximately, you can write this down as, if you take minus z e square by a as common, then you will get this as z minus 5 by 8. So this will be your result. So this is the corrected ground state energy. We are not talking about excited states. We have not talked about excited states of the helium atom so far. So this is the corrected ground state energy up to first order in perturbation theory. So this is a nice result, where you have this atomic number Z also. So you can apply this result for helium atom, Z is equal to 2. So for helium, Z is 2. For singly ionized lithium atom, Z is equal to 3. For doubly ionized beryllium atom, Z is 4, and so on. For carbon, which is like this, I think this is plus 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 plus. You understand what I mean? Z is 6. So that is why I actually kept this factor of Z. So you can apply this. You can apply this result to all other systems that have 2 electrons. So this is the reason we have kept this. And now you can immediately calculate what the ionization energy is. The ionization energy, the ionization energy is defined in this way. It is defined as minus E plus Z square E square by A. It's the definition of the ionization energy. Oh, just a minute. This is minus E minus. You can do it in the other way around also. You can define it as plus E minus Z square E square by A. So that is the by E, Z square E square by 2A. So this is the energy that is required to pull off one of the electrons. So this energy. So this is the energy that is required to pull off one of the electrons from the shell, from the electronic shell, and it is defined in this way: minus E minus of z square e square by 2a. Had you defined it with a plus e, then this would be plus this thing. So this is the definition. And if you put in the value of minus e in this expression, what you see is that this is, so let us just put it over here. So this is approximately, because this e is approximate. So minus of e will be z e square by a z minus 5 by 8, and then minus z square e square by 2a. Okay, and if you just calculate this will be equal to, so this is z square e square by a, and you have a minus of this, so this will give us z square e square by 2a and minus 5 by 8 z e square by a. Once again you can, so this is what we have. So ultimately, if you simplify this further, this will be equal to z square by 2, z square by 2 minus 5 by 8 z e square by a. Z square by 2 minus 5 by 8 z e square by a. So this is your answer.
Sir,
Huh.
in the ionization energy, how are we getting the minus z square e square by 2a term?
Which one? This one.
This term.
It is basically the definition. You see, the energy, this is a bound state system, right? It's a bound state. And bound state means the bound state, the fact that this is the energy of a bound state is reflected by the fact that you have a minus sign in front for the energy.
Yes.
Okay? So this is the total energy of the system up to first order of the ground state of the system up to first order in perturbation theory. So you have a minus sign in front. Now what do you mean by the ionization energy? Ionization energy is, this is a negative energy, and ionization energy means what? You need to pull off one of the electrons, then only it will become the helium ion, right?
Yes.
And what is the energy of an electron, of a bound state electron? That is minus z square e square by 2a.
Yes.
So if you supply plus z square e square by 2a, then it will be pulled off.
Okay, I understood. Yes.
So you will have minus of this plus z square e square by 2a.
Yes, sir.
That is what we are doing. We have just, so it is basically E plus z square e square by 2a. That is ionization energy.
Yes.
Only thing that I have done is I have put a minus, overall minus sign in front.
Okay, sir.
Instead of E plus z square e square by 2a, I have put minus E minus z square e square by 2a. That is how I have defined the ionization energy. Why that minus is put in front? To get everything in plus, to get all the results in plus. Because when you measure experimentally, you do not measure minus 2.
Yes.
You don't measure minus 2 electron volt. You say it is 2 electron volt. You take basically the magnitude of that. So in order to get the magnitude, you define the ion. That is why I have used this symbol, three symbols. This dash dash dash. This one. So this basically tells us that I define the ionization energy by an overall minus sign. Okay. So this is your ionization energy. And this E square by A is basically nothing but, if you calculate this, it is twice into 13.6 electron volts. Okay, this E square by A, this is the Bohr radius A, and this is the electronic charge. So this is 2 into 13.6 electron volt. So this unit of energy, E square by A, is called atomic unit of energy. So in atomic units of energy, so if I call this as 1, in atomic units of energy, which is this, the ionization energy is just Z square by 2 minus 5 by 8 Z in atomic units of energy. So you don't need to worry about 2 into 13.6 electron volt every time. Okay? So in atomic units of energy, A dot U dot E, in atomic units of energy, the ionization energy depends only on this, is this nice result, which is a function of the atomic number Z, and it is a pure number. Because Z is it is a number, it is dimensionless, therefore this is a number, so the ionization energy is basically this in atomic units of energy. And now you can you can calculate this theoretically for all these systems. For helium atom, Z is equal to 2, lithium, singly ionized lithium atom, beryllium, doubly ionized, then 4 are gone, so they have pulled out 4 electrons, so this is carbon. You can calculate this, and you will see that for helium, let me write it down over here, for Z is equal to 2, which is helium, the theoretical value you can calculate by putting Z is equal to 2 here. You just check it, calculate it yourself, you will get 0.75. In atomic units of energy, it is 0.75, and the experimental measured value is 0.9035. This is the experimental value, the measured value. And now for lithium, singly ionized lithium, it is 2, this is Z is equal to 3, it is 2.625. So this you can calculate theoretically, because we have done that. Put Z is equal to 3 here, you will get 2.625. The experimental measured value is 2.7798. This is the experimental measured value. For beryllium, doubly ionized beryllium, which is Z is equal to 4. Put Z is equal to 4 here, and if you do that, you will get 5.5. The theoretical value is 5.5. And the experimental measured value is 5.6560, 5.656. See, 5.6560. So this is the experimental measured value, and you can keep on doing for carbon and so on. For this one, you can check yourself. So you can see that this is quite nice. This matches with the experimental results, but the matching between the theoretical and the experimentally measured values are much more in agreement, are much more better when you increase the value of Z. See, as you increase Z, for Z is equal to 2 helium, this is like this. It is 0.75, 0.9035. When you increase Z from 2 to 3 for lithium, it is 2.625, it is 2.7798. So, and as you increase for beryllium, it is 5.5, it is 5.6560. So as you increase Z, the agreement between theory and experiment starts improving as you increase the value of Z. The reason for this is quite nice. You can actually understand by looking at the perturbation. The strength of the perturbation is basically E square by R12, right? That is the strength of the perturbation, the Coulomb repulsion term. And the strength of the perturbation, when you compare it with the potential energy experienced by an electron. What is the potential energy experienced by an electron? It is minus Z E square by R, right? For an electron sitting at position R, at a distance R from the nucleus, it experiences a Coulomb potential energy of minus Z E square by R. And the strength of the perturbation, the repulsion between two electrons, is E square by R12. So you can understand that the strength of the perturbation compared to this Coulomb potential energy experienced by the electron, that ratio keeps on decreasing as you increase the value of Z. because Z appears in the denominator, E square by R12 divided by the magnitude of the Coulomb potential energy, which is Z E square by R. So if you keep on increasing Z, the strength of the perturbation decreases with respect to the Coulomb potential energy, and therefore, as you increase, and therefore the perturbation becomes more and more weaker as you increase Z. So no wonder that if you it is no wonder that as when you increase the value of Z, the agreement between theory and experiment becomes more and more better. So that is the reason of this thing, that you increase Z and the matching is improving. And this is what I have to say about the ground state of the helium atom. So we have completed the ground state of the helium atom. In the next lecture, which is on Monday, we shall look at the excited states of the helium atom. So with that, we shall finish, at least for my part, the course will end here. And there is one more announcement that I have to make. Please remember that Professor Archon Majumdar will start your class from 13th November, which is a Friday, at the same time, from 12 o'clock. So 13th November, Professor Majumdar will start taking the classes. And I shall end my class on 11th. On Monday, 9th November will be my last class. And the Wednesday, there will be a gap, 11th, so there will be no class. And 13th November, Professor Majumdar will start taking your classes. Okay, so do you have any questions? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so 13th is Professor Majumdar is going to start taking your class. So if you don't have any more questions at this moment, let us end for today. Thank you very much.
Okay, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.